Hi everyone, welcome to another low-code edition. My name is Bogdan. I am the founder and CEO of Planton and DNN Sharp. Today will be a very interesting webinar. We'll do something that has always been on our list for a long time, and that is to dynamically compute composite PDF documents that we send in email marketing campaigns. And the use case that we have today is for our case study, actually, our case study list that we want to create a PDF and send them based on the industries. We'll get to talk more about that in the hands-on part of this webinar. Just a brief introduction for people that are new to this event. It's a community-driven webinar. We have technical content. We have updates from support, updates from the product development team, and this hands-on part where we actually build a system. All webinars are recorded and they are published on our YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe. I will also post the link in a bit on the chat channel for your convenience. So as I was saying, we have these episodes that are recording. They are in every webinar. And today I also want to give you a bit of overview about our business in general. Not too much because this is a technical webinar. But overall, just wanted to, sorry, something is wrong here. So just wanted to share with you our success so far because you've been great and thank you for being with us and doing these amazing things together. So basically this year we signed up 36 customers and we grew 350%. So it's a good growth for us. We also grew the team and you can see it's already reflecting everywhere. Like we have this webinar, but also you see a lot more videos coming out, a lot more features coming out. So we are scaling our team as we are growing, scaling the revenue. So that's good. And you won't believe it, but this is the 15th webinar. So we've been doing it very good and constantly during the past few months. We are happy with it and the views are up, especially because they are recorded and people keep coming back to this. And speaking of the team, I also would like to ask your help. So we are expanding our sales team in the US. So if you know anyone that would be a good fit to sell our technology, we'd greatly appreciate an introduction. So without further ado, I will invite the technical team to give us their content. And we'll start with Dale. Dale leads our support team, and he will give us some stories from the trenches, from the last week's support cases. So Dale, if you can take over. We might have a problem with Dale. Dale, can you hear us?
I am so sorry. I got lost in Zoom. I'm fighting with Zoom today.
No worries.
I bet that was exciting for you.
Exactly. Building the anticipation. Yeah, very exciting.
All right. Let me share my screen from the trenches. Okay. So I had a great case come up this week that was asking about Action Grid CSS, and I wanted to demonstrate a little bit about how to style an action grid, and then provide some resources about doing that. After I get done speaking here, I'll paste some things on the chat channel so that these are all the resources I'm going to use today. So the challenge is if we have just a plain old grid, and this is my typical show my users grid, and it's completely unstyled, this is the way it comes out of the box from us on the plain skin. So if we add, and we're going to be working in the root CSS classes today, and I've already done some work. So I've added a class called my users. And so I'm just going to save that for this grid and refresh and show that it's kind of a dramatic change once it gets styled. So I wanted to show you kind of how to do that and do it interactively. So I'm going to reset it, and I'm going to call it CSS demo. I'm just adding a class name called CSS demo. And so when I do that, I'm adding a name that doesn't currently exist in my CSS. And so it goes back to being a normal default grid. Within Google Chrome, and all browsers, I think, have this, but there is an inspect feature. And so I'm going to use Google Chrome's inspect. Your browser might be slightly different, but there is an inspection tool to select an element on the page. And this is going to be useful to find an element and learn how to style it. So I want to style this table. And first, I'm just going to start with creating a new style rule that's called the same as my class that I added, CSS demo. Now, this is case sensitive, so you're going to want to watch out for that. Do it exactly the same in the grid as you do it in the CSS. And just as an overview, we're going to interactively develop what this CSS is and then save it so that it becomes permanent. So for example, if we want to change the font size of this, in this class, you can just begin to type font, and it pops up with a lot of suggestions, anything that matches. And so font size is listed. We can hit tab to go to the next section, and then it has suggestions about what sizes you can use. And notice that as I tab through these, or actually I'm using my down arrow to go through these, it interactively changes on the screen. And so you could pick, for example, if you like the look of large, you could just pick that by selecting it. If you want to be very specific about it, if you wanted it to be 22 pixels, you could specify it that way. Or once you have a pixel count in there, you can use the up and down arrow to just make it bigger or smaller. So I'm going to go with 22 pixels. I like the look of that. And let's say that I wanted to add that border, that dashed border. So I'm going to look for border, and there is a border parameter, and I'm going to say dashed, and there it is. So now we get a dashed border, and let's say that I also want to have a background color. There it is on the list, background color. And now notice as I slide through these colors that it suggests, the grid just completely changes colors. So I'm going to go with, let's say, something nice. We'll go with dark cyan. That's fine. And so now and we'll do one more thing. I'm going to add some padding to the top of this. So I'm going to pick padding top and say 1 pixel, and then just start increasing it until I like the look of it. So say we want 36 pixels. There is a ton of stuff that you can do within CSS, and so I'm going to point you to a nice tutorial on that. But once you arrive at the selections, you can just copy this out of your browser, and then we can close up this window. Now, they're not permanent. If I refresh the page, it all goes back. But we can go to the custom CSS section and add this to the bottom of the file. So CSS demo has these things that we just picked out. We save it. And then when you refresh, the first time, you're going to want to hold Shift and refresh. That just forces the CSS to come back out of cache. And then all the selections that you just made are there. So that's the very quick version of how to do CSS with your grids. And of course, those same concepts apply if you're looking at action forms as well. I'm going to point you to this. I love W3 Schools, and there's a nice tutorial about CSS. So all the different kinds of things that you can change in there. Then changing topics here real quickly, a couple of other things. just wanted to mention, we had a couple of cases come up this week where people are on versions other than what we recommend. We're currently supporting .NET Nuke version 9.6.1. We're tested up through that version, but there are known issues with 9.6.2 and 9.7. The development team is working on those, and we'll probably hear more about that from Reza, but try not to go past 9.6.1 unless you're just testing in a test environment. And finally, we're up to 11 videos on low-code feature focus. So I encourage you to subscribe to that channel as well. Again, I'll put the link in there shortly. That's it for today.
Thanks a lot, Dale. Very, very interesting concepts, especially for new users into the programming, into the web world. I think CSS and HTML is something basic that once you master it, it opens a world of possibilities where you are not constrained by the features that are available out of the box. So now we are ready to move on to the next part of this webinar, which is learning a bit about what's coming in the product in the next releases, but also see some of the new features in action before they are getting released.
Hi, Bogdan. If you want to enable my sharing, that would be excellent.
Oh.
Or I think someone else maybe is sharing. There we go. I'm good.
They'll just stopped it, yeah.
Sorry. Try a little later.
Okay, so quick update on release 1.9. Things are tracking well, and we have several new features coming. And the key thing Dale touched on, we have broken through and resolved some upfront issues that we were finding with 9.7 compatibility. 9.7.2 actually came out a couple of days ago, so we are now actively testing against that, and things are going pretty well. So I'm confident that we'll be shipping with DNN 9.7.2 compatibility, and that should be coming in the next couple of weeks tops. I did want to show you a new feature that we have that's going to be shipping out, and this one's been asked for a while. It's essentially a read entities action. And so whenever you create an entity in your data model, you get a bunch of things, and basically it's your CRUD, your create, read, update, delete. However, currently the read entity action wants you to specify an ID, and it targets one record. And that's handy when you are trying to get information about a record a user is on. They've clicked on something out of a listing, you want to show the details. But a lot of times when you're working, you want to get back multiple items so you can iterate over them, do different things. And so we have this action. I'm going to show it to you here in a second, but it basically generates a list in JSON payload for you. And it has a few configurations that you can set up. So first thing is that whereas the normal read is just read customer, for example, this one will be called read all, and then the plural name of the entities. So they'll be grouped together, you'll see them. You'll have a where clause ability, kind of like the grid data source has when you're using entity. So you can target down the records. You don't have to consume the entire record set that's in there. And we are limited to 1,000 entries for performance. Right now, we will iterate on this and add pagination in so you can take in more than 1,000, but process and work with them 1,000 at a time. Like I said, it'll return all the data as JSON. And then last note here is that it honors all the security settings that are set up on the entity. So if you've said a certain user can basically read or not read, then this action won't work if a user with that role is trying to run this action. So you always want to be mindful of how you're setting up your security. And with that said, let's jump in. I've set up a quick sample entity here. It's just a list of ideas, right? And you can give them a rating for how good or not you think they are, and then approve them or not. And so you see I've got 5 of them here right now, mostly themed at maybe someone finding a job and saving some money. And we have one idea here we didn't think was very good, so we've not approved it. But this is the entity we're going to be working with. And so I've got it set up over here in the configuration side. I did just want to show that you have the APIs that get set up for you automatically make use of those actions like read entity, delete entity. And if I ran this one, see, it's got read idea, singular. And if I pass in an ID, I get back the JSON for one record. However, I've set up a workflow here for read all entities. And let's take a look real quick at what it does. Basically, it's three things. And first one is I'm going to read all my ideas. We'll take a look at how it's set up. It returns that back to me as JSON. So I'm going to load entities as JSON. And then I'm going to execute actions over that entity list. I'm basically going to loop over it. And in this case, I've just set up a simple counter so we can see how many are coming back. So let's take a look at what this action looks like. It's pretty straightforward. It will always, when you pick it, you'll have the list, and I can show that in a second. But you won't have to specify it. You'll pick which entity you want to do the read all from as you're choosing your action. You have the kind of standard ability to override and give a friendly error message. You can conditionally put in some logic that will run or not run this action. You could target an entity that's in a different database if you specified a connection string, but these are the three things that are key to this. One is your where clause, totally optional. It'll give you everything back if you don't specify it. In this case, I said, hey, I only want to get in this workflow, we're going to pass in a parameter called min rating. It's the minimum rating that I want to pull back. You have the maximum number of records to return. Now, I've got 1,000 in here. This would be empty when you first add it. I could say I only want to pull back 100 at a time or 10 at a time. If you go over 1,000 right now, it's still going to cap you out at 1,000. And then the important thing here is once it gets the JSON and reads your records, it wants to hand them back to you so you can work with them in the next steps and your next actions. And so it wants you to give a name to the token that's going to contain the JSON payload. So in this case, I'm just calling it ideas. And I've got my load entities JSON action, and it wants to know what your JSON model is, right? Because I've said I'm basically going to load entities off JSON. So we had named in our output token in the read all ideas action, we called it ideas. So just using the bracket syntax, that will render basically the JSON right into the JSON model for this. And then it says, okay, what do you want to call your new entity? So now you've given me the JSON. I've turned it into an entity, basically an array that you can work with and loop over. So I just called it e-ideas, like for entity ideas. And then lastly, I'm going to execute actions over this array or list now. And all I've done here, you can filter, and I've said, hey, I only want to see the ones where approved is true, back from our screen where we had the field approved. And so I don't want to see the ones that are false. That's handy. It's like an extra layer of filtering you can do when you're working with the list. And all I'm doing here is an inject data action into context. And I've just called this kind of a temporary token iCount. And then I'm doing a simple math, and I'm just incrementing the counter. Not sure if y'all are familiar, but a side tip, whenever you are working with a token, and a lot of times things will mess up, you know, if you don't have, it's expecting a value to be there, especially where you're building like where clauses and things like that. And so if for some reason your token didn't have a value in it by default, it didn't get set up right, and you're saying where ID is equal to the token, and there's nothing there, your SQL is going to mess up. And so you can just do this little equal sign within your tokens, and then it's basically going to give it a default value in case it doesn't have a value. So here, the first time over my loop, my counter doesn't have a value. So all I'm doing is setting it to 0 and then incrementing by 1 on each loop. And so let's run this and take a look at how it works. So it's going to ask me for that minimum rating, and I'm going to say I only want to see things, in this case, that are greater than or equal to 1. And so there are 4 items that came back that are in the true approved state. This is the payload, and this was my counter. So we can run it again. We'll take a look back at our data set, and we can see, I've got one of each kind of here. So let's say I want anything that's greater than or equal to 4. So I should get 2 items back in this case. So my minimum rating is 4. And you'll see I get 2, and I get those 2 records. So while this was just an example of where I'm looping over and doing a counter, think about all the things you can do here where you can go out and at an entity and target maybe items that have been sitting for a long time that need to be touched or assigned to somebody and they've been sitting stagnant, new things that have come in. You can set up a scheduler in automation and just schedule the workflow to run and basically use your read all ideas, read all tickets, read all whatevers, and then loop over them and take some sort of actual meaningful action. Send out emails, update the status of them, inject them into another entity, maybe where they're assigned to someone. So sky's the limit, you can get creative, but the key here is you have the ability now, without having to write some sort of SQL, to just target a list of records that are in an entity, all of them, or filter them down, and then loop over them and take some action, or use them in any way that you could use JSON. So there's a lot of different visualizations. I mean, that's kind of the language these days of the web, and a lot of kind of third-party libraries and plugins and things. Everything wants to consume JSON and do things with that. And so now you have a very easy way to get your JSON back, and whether it's within the system or to pass off to another system, you can kind of package that JSON payload up and send it off. So if there's no questions, happy to answer them if there are. Otherwise,
there were some questions, but Radu picked it up in the chat. But I think, Radu, you only reply to panelists, so maybe you should reply to all. So and everyone can see the answer. But the question was, can you use other default values, not just hard-coded 0? And basically, Radu answered that, yeah, you can use other tokens as well in there, and strings.
Yes, you could have another token. So maybe you've got just a static token, or where you've defined what is my default. And instead of you actually typing in text or a number, it'll take anything that's appropriate in that situation, right? If I've got something saying ID equals and I put the word test in there, your SQL is not going to run, right? So you want to target it appropriate to the context you're working in, but you can put in whatever you want there, text or numbers, as well as other tokens.
Cool. Yes, very, very cool feature, especially because it reduces the amount of custom SQL that you have to write. And I mean, writing it is one problem, but maintaining it and keeping it up to date, that's the bigger problem. So the fewer SQL you have, the more maintainable the solution it is.
And one last note I did want to mention is that when you upgrade to 1.9, any entities that you have existing that are already created during the update process will go through and generate the read all for you. So it's not just from here going forward, but retroactively, all of your created entities will have this action as well available now.
Awesome. Thanks, Reza.
Thank you.
We are ready to move to the final part of this webinar and the most code intensive. I will share my screen a bit before that to give you an introduction of what we want to build today. So basically, we have this part in our webinar, just giving you a brief intro where we build an app and incrementally add to it week over week. Every 10 additional or so, we change the topic. So we started with a project management application, but now we move to a marketing system. Everything that you see here, you can request a copy from us, so you can have a clone of it and play with it, extend it, use it for your own purposes. Of course, the later you ask for this, the more production ready it will be, because we only started these 3 webinars ago, and we have the basics: contact and list, we have campaigns, and we have email templates. If you remember last episode where we integrated that cool email template editor that's visual. But today we want to get into this game of, okay, why would you use low-code to build a marketing system? There are many marketing systems out there that already are very powerful. And the power of low-code is that you can do your customizations. You are not locked in by the features that those platforms provide. And one of our challenges that we have is sending case studies to our potential customers or to existing customers. So just to show you an example of such a document, it's a PDF. It has some intro slides, right, about our platform, about what we do, about some other information. And then it's about case studies. Like this customer did that, it took this amount of days to build, maybe a screenshot, maybe a link to a further demo, you know. And then the next slide, it's another case study, and so on. But you can imagine as we grow and we have more case studies, this becomes a very manual process. And you don't want to send all the case studies to all the customers, because if it's a healthcare potential lead, we want to send healthcare related case studies, not 100 case studies. It will just be too much noise. So what we want to do today is actually have each of these pages from the PDF. It will be a separate PDF, and we will compose bigger PDFs with the ones that we want. So if we do a campaign on healthcare, we'll define what case studies go into that campaign, and then that document will get generated automatically and appended to emails, appended as an attachment to emails sent through that campaign. And then we can create dynamicity, you know, we can have different documents composed differently for various campaigns. So that's our goal for today. And I will leave Radu to show us how it gets done. So I'll stop my sharing.
Hello, everyone. Let me start my share. Cool. So yeah, today we are gonna do exactly what Bogdan said. And but before we go there, I just want to show you something that in the meanwhile I finished from the last video. So I finished the campaign, the template chooser for each campaigns. So each time you start a new campaign, you can either choose from starting blank or starting from an existing template in the system. Okay, cool. That maybe move it here. Okay, so now when you click Start Campaign, you can either start without the template, or this is a test for me. It's actually an email template that I created in the last video. The only difference is saying here first template. So if I go back and click new, I can go and choose that. I can click start and give it a few seconds, and then my template is gonna be here. So I can start. I can either send this one, or I can either modify in a little bit and prepare a new campaign. Now, moving forward, in preparation for this video, I created 3 entities to store my document components and my documents themselves. So what we're trying to achieve is to have multiple PDF pages and just choose in which order we want to merge them to generate a new one. So to do that, I created 3 new entities, and I'm just gonna start with the most easy of them and the core of everything. It's the document part, which is actually storing for me small, just a friendly name and pages from PDF parts. The second and the component, which will be the document template. And the document template is actually the final document, the name of the final document, the document itself, and the document parts that that may make that PDF, that document. And between them, you can see here I have something called order documents parts. So the idea which will be that each individual document can have each document template can have multiple document parts in different orders. So to do that, I created my order document parts entity. And here you can see that it's a friendly name, a document part that I assumingly already have, and the order of it. And this multiple entries from this entity will compose a document template. Maybe what I can do right now is maybe show you a little bit what was already generated for me. So this will hopefully would be easier to understand. Okay, going to the platform. So I have the document template and the document parts. Remember that the ordered document parts are not visible because they should not be created by a user interface. They should be created only by the system. So if I go to the document parts, you can see that I already have some friendly names here and there. And you can see that I'm missing, I have the intro and five parts about the use cases, and I'm missing the outro. So I can just go and add the outro really quickly. I can choose the outro from my here, and I can choose the outro. Cool. So now, presumably, I have all the components that I need to generate a new file. So I have the intro, the use cases, and the outros. Now going to the document template.
Maybe you can open some of those PDFs so
yes,
we can see how
yes,
they are built.
Yes, yes, you're right. So we have four pages for the intro. You can see here. After that, we have individual pages for each use case. I think this is I think I opened the intro twice. Let me see. And this is the outro, for example. So one complete PDF should contain, let's say, the intro, one or more use cases, and the outro pages, which I think there are another 4 or 5. Okay. Let me close this. Cool. So now, if I want to create an email template, what I need to do is go there first and document template, my bad. I can click new. I can just give it a name. Let's say healthcare document. Oops. Well, I only did for preparation, I only did the entity, so I didn't touch the final document. Should not be here. So I'm just going to leave it as it is for the moment, and we can take care of removing that a little bit later. So you can see now that I have my document template, which is healthcare document, and it needs a list of document parts, or more exactly, order document parts. So if I go and click to see the list of them, I can just go and click add, and I can say I want an intro, and I want the document part to be the intro itself, and I want to be in first as a order. And I can go again, and maybe I'm gonna say I'm not sure, let's say and I can search for omnicell use case, and I'm gonna say this is gonna be the second in line, and I'm just gonna go again and say maybe I want the HES part, HES use case. This can be 3, and let's add really quickly the outro document outro. And this can be the 4th in order. So now what we achieved at this moment is the fact that we want to create a new document, and we have 4 components in the right order, as you can see here, and we want to merge those 4 in just one file. Now, because we're already having all the information that we need, the natural course will be to go and create a workflow that most likely in the end we can put here on this grid and attach the newly generated document here to the final document. So moving to configuration and going to the workflows. And before I'm going to create the workflows, I want to explain a little bit about something new that I will do now in the use of workflows. I'm going to do a recursive workflow. So basically, I'm going to do a workflow that calls itself multiple times until it finds an end. And after that, comes back and merges the files. So I prepared these small pictures that actually explains the iterative and the recursive approach. So the iterative approach, it will be, you make a pile of boxes and look through. While the pile isn't empty, you grab a box, and you can either do two things. You can either, if you find the box, you go and add it to the pile of boxes, or other way, if you find the key in the box, you are done. Each time you find a new box, you just go again and search, and go again and search, and go again and search. Well, the recursive approach, it will be go through the very item in the box. If you find the box, you go again. If you find the key, you stop. So the approaches, both of the approaches work. I just wanted to do it in the recursive way because it makes a little bit more sense in this situation. So let's have a look how this looks in a workflow environment. So the first thing it will be, maybe the easiest thing that will be first. Let me show you before I go there. Let me show what the merge PDF actions actually looks. So the merge PDF action, it's requiring me to give it a file, a PDF file, a second file, and a folder for the document, the new document to be generated, and my document, and maybe the absolute URL here. I can grab the URL. Now for passing the first and the second file, what I'm gonna do is go to the email templates. To the document part, and I'm just gonna open really quickly the first two, and I'm most likely gonna grab the I can grab the relative URL maybe here. I'm just gonna, the idea is that I'm gonna hard code those really quickly, maybe, and the second file can be this one. Okay, so as you can see below, it says it accepts basically any kind of URL that you have. So maybe one thing that I can do, I can remove the space, the encoding of the spaces. Oops. Okay. Really quickly. Too many spaces. Okay. Few more to go. Can do it. And this, okay, so we have our two PDF documents. We are just gonna generate them in this folder. We have a name, and we store out a URL for them of the new document. And what I will need to do is end the workflow really quickly, and maybe I can output my URL really quickly here, and I can click save. Maybe I can name it merge PDF, for example, and I can click save, and I can click save again. And if you click run, you can see I got a new URL for my new document, and you can see the first document is merging beautifully with the second PDF. So the first PDF with the second PDF. So basically, this is the first one, and this is the second one, and this is the result. Cool. Now let's use the recursive mode to generate multiple documents, because and I just want to show you really quickly. I have the SQL here prepared. So I did this before the webinar started. is basically pulling all the documents that, all the parts that I need from all the document parts from a document template. So I have everything here. Maybe I don't need actually the star really quickly. So these are actually the file IDs that I have in the database. So this is actually the order that I need to merge them. So what we did in our first example, we merged 188 with 202, but after that we need to merge with 203 and 204 to continue. And the secret in doing this, it will be to get each document, one document by document. So first we want this document, after that we want this document, and so on. So we just need to get one document individually. So a trick to do this, it will be you can select the whole query that we already did. Again, give it an alias, and we can say something like select the first entry and offset 0 rows. Sorry, order by. I think I did a mistake. This should be a column. Well, no, it should be here. Okay, my bad. So the idea it will be that at this moment, what I'm gonna do is, so if I run the query inside, you can see I have all 4. But if I start incrementing this 0 here at the bottom, the offset, I'm just starting to get the second row. Well, sorry, I'm starting to get the last 3 rows, and after that, I'm starting to get the last 2 rows, and so on. So the trick it will be if I select only the first item each time, which I'm doing right here, I'm just gonna pull each PDF based on this offset. So now that I have this, you can see if the offset is gonna be 0, now I have my first document. So I'm just gonna put this away for a second and start my new workflow. What I know is that I will need an input, which is I can call start, which can be of type number, and I will need to exit at the end a file ID. A file ID is, that I will need to match with the final document in the document template. So we can do it like this. And the first thing it will be that I will need to run a SQL query for my get first item, and I can put this here. And instead of having 0 here, what we can do is have the input parameter start. So the first time we are going to run, if we send the input parameter start with 0, then in that case we'll get the first document. If we are going to call the workflow again with the parameter 1, we are going to get the second document, and so on. So I'm just going to click, maybe I will need to get my PDF. I need to extract this column because this is going to be useful, DNN part. Let's say current doc. Okay, and I'm going to click save. What I'm going to do really quickly at this moment, I'm going to click save. I'm going to save, the idea is that I'm going to save the workflow at this moment, because the next action that I need is actually the workflow itself. So I don't have it right now because there's no workflow saved. So I'm just going to say recursive PDF merge recursive. Oops. Recursive PDF merge, and click save again, and just come back to it. Now, if I have my first, so now I have in the decision block, and I need to split this really quickly, and the easiest way is by the top. and I'm gonna say file ID equals, well, nothing. So the idea, it will be something like this. I can either, well, the idea, it will be something like this. I can either have a file, or my document template can either have 1, 0, 1, or multiple files that I can get, I want to merge together, or it can going and searching for the end of the, going and searching for more documents. At some point we might find that we hit the end, and at that point, if we hit the end, we like to respond that we didn't find any document at that point. So what I'm gonna do really quick here, it will be to say current doc. If it's nothing, so we didn't find nothing, I'm just gonna say my let's put it here. I'm just gonna say that this is my file ID that I would like to output is gonna be nothing. And this is, so this is one branch, but now the second branch gets more interesting. If I add now, I can add actually the recursive PDF merge here. And I want to start, and the start should be the token do mat of expression equals start +1. And this should be the file ID output. So I think at this point, it's kind of starts to have a little bit more sense in terms of what I'm trying to achieve here. So each time I find a new file, I just want to find another one. I just want to find another one. And I'm just starting looping inside, executing the same workflow again and again until I don't find any more files. And at that moment, and when I don't find any files, I'm just gonna go to the top branch, and I'm just gonna respond with empty because I didn't find any more files. So this should be the opposite of this. If it's different from empty, so we have a document, we should maybe, let me arrange this a little bit so I have more space. Cool. So if I find the document, I will try to search for another one. So what's actually happening right now is something like this. So I will start with 0 and I get 108. And after the second execution where I increment the start, I will get 202. If after the third run, I will get 203. So the problem is that, yes, that's fine. For the first stage, we are just searching for files. We're searching for more files. But what happens when we hit when we hit the end? Basically, what happens when I don't have any more files? So what happens when I'm gonna hit the 4? I think in this case, it's not gonna bring me anything. Well, my bad. Okay. So in that situation, I will need to. So the idea is that what happens if this execution brings me nothing? So I have to take care of that also. And I'm gonna add a start break again here, and another one here. Oops, my bad. I will need here an inject data. I'm just gonna leave it as it is for the moment. I just want to really quickly make the design. And an end here, and this should not go there. This should come, well, you here need to have the actual merge PDF, and I'm just gonna leave this blank as well for the moment. Okay, and this should merge here, and after that, this should merge here. Something like this, okay. So the idea will be something like this. If my let's say document. So the idea is that if this workflow is gonna bring me a new document, that means that I need to merge the one that I already have with the one that this workflow returned. So basically the one that it already merged before me. I'm not sure. Okay. And if this is empty, and otherwise, if this one doesn't bring me anything, so otherwise the execution of this went through the top branch, this means that my only existing document is the one that I basically found the last one, and I tried to find another one, and because I didn't find any new document, the one from the previous run is actually the last one. So in that situation, we can go to this branch and say, well, the file ID that we want to return is actually the current document. Now, okay, cool. So now going back to let's set up the workflow, the second workflow, because right now this is the doc. So we have the new document, or either we don't have any document. So this split is going to manage that. Going to figure out which way to go. And here we have to set up our first and second files. So usually the current one should stay at the top. So we want to merge them in the correct order. So we want the current document to be the first one, and the second one should be the one that the workflow itself found out that it might be the latest, or it's basically coming back and saying to me that those are documents that are already merged for you, so you need to merge with the correct one. I'm just gonna put them in this folder. I'm gonna name them new document. Maybe this should be a parameter, and I'm gonna save the file ID in the token. In the token file ID. Save. Cool. So what's going to happen now on the second top branch is going to be something like this. So I found a new document. I already have a current document. I'm just going to go and merge them, and I'm going to say this is the last document that I found. And in the next run, so basically I'm coming back right now. It's going to say again, I have a document. I already have the two already merged documents before this, and I'm going to merge them with this one. I think at this moment, everything should be okay. One mention that I actually want to have is so that I didn't test too much this workflow before I already kind of finish it. The problem is if I somehow fail to stop this workflow, it's just gonna execute itself until you run out of memory, or the application crashes. So you should be careful to have a proper stop rule. And I'm just gonna click save. Well, I think I'm missing something, and I think I know what I'm missing. I think I've copy pasted. Oh yeah, all right. So this should be document template ID, document template ID. This should be a bind, the parameter name, the parameter document template ID. Document template should be another input parameter of type document template. Okay, so we need to specify this as well. Cool. Now let's try to run this and see if I break my instance or not. Test. So the start, every time the start should be hard coded to 0, and the document template in my situation, I think it's with ID number 2. Yes. And I can click run. And I think I missed something somewhere in my workflow. I have a small error. Let me check out what I did wrong. No, this is fine. Oh, yes. Document template ID, because the workflow itself needs to get the template that we're working on. This can be new. The document, everything looks fine here. And everything should look fine here. Okay, let's try again. Start is 0 and the document template is 2. And we are running. And to be honest, at this point, I'm afraid that I did an infinite loop, and I might need to stop the instance from the server itself and restart it. Let's see. Just gonna give it a few seconds.
Question, Radu.
Yes.
So to protect against the infinite loop thing, could you have put some sort of an extra condition in where you know, like, this really isn't going to have more than 10 sections or 20 ever, just to make it not run away like that? Could you have said, hey, break out if the number is greater than this?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I'm not sure if that's actual. So that's, I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I think you can have a max execution of, 10, 12, 20, 100 even can work at this point. So I'm just gonna force restart the website. So just give me a second. It seems that I didn't do something proper here. So I'm just gonna have a look and see why this didn't stop. So if my document is something, merge this, if document is here.
Radu, looks like
Yes.
maybe a misspelling where you say current doc on the branches. One has 2 R's, or it's
That's
a
it.
low resolution. I don't see it, right?
No,
Okay.
both of them are single R's.
Right.
Doc. This is the file ID is a doc. The expression goes start +1. So maybe I should start. I should have a look here in the tokens. Test. Oh, I think this is the problem.
Yeah, it's not correct, the token.
The token, it should say.
It should have a namespace, right?
Do I? Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, 0 + 1. This should be 1. All right. Wait. 0 plus no. Okay. Wait, what? Let me copy this. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I think this should work. Otherwise, I just. What? Is this, or either the machine is looping and it's behaving weird?
Oh, expression is misspelled.
But why?
Somebody suggested that.
I just copied the example. Seems like here is working. That's good. What? Why is it doing that? Because I see like 1, or anyway, I'm just gonna assume it's something weird, and I'm just gonna try again.
Reza, you're doing the same earlier in your demo, right?
Well, the expression was.
Yes.
Do you see an error here?
No.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna work this time. Test workflow 0, 2. Okay, it worked. It worked. This is not helping me. Okay. So I have a new document. I have the file ID 206. So now that I have this, I can quickly go here in my listing. I can add really quickly a new button. Gen file. Oops. Gen file. I can just say execute recursive merge PDF with the start of 0, and the document template is the current one ID. The new file ID I'm just gonna store as a file idea. My bad. I think okay, my bad. All right, the new file ID and the new file. What I can do is partial update the new email template. This is the new the email template is the
Not the email template, the document template.
My bad. Documents. Partially update document template. All right, the current one. ID and the parameter I want is the final document to be by newly generated file ID, and I want to refresh the grid. Cool. Refresh the page. So those 4 pieces should be put together. Generate file, new document, and ta-da! The 2 use cases are merged together with the intro and the outro.
Very, very cool. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so we can spend the time until next webinar to integrate this with the campaign. So then in the campaign, you can select what document to send. Yep. So it integrates with everything that we built so far. But the idea, I think the idea is very, very powerful, that you can generate dynamic documents in marketing campaign when you send bulk emails. And actually what we are also going to do today is customize this PDF for each recipient. We are just going to put an overlay with a name, nothing fancy, but as you build more metadata around contacts, you can customize them, even include some slides or others based on the metadata associated with contacts. So yeah, a lot of potential here. We'll keep expanding it and we'll keep using it ourselves. We'll start using it ourselves, of course. So thanks a lot for being again with us today. And I hope you enjoyed the technical content. Again, it will be published on our YouTube channel. And make sure to follow it and make sure to give us feedback after this webinar. It greatly improves us, adjust the content based on what the community feels like should be better explained or shown in more detail. I'll be seeing you next week. Until then, have some wonderful days. Thank you.